a lot.
Yeah.
And because of the champions that's currently in the meta, they can pick bot lane and top lane really early. They like to go for Jace and they like to go for like Caitlyn or just anything that can push in the bot lane, and then it enables RYU to kind of counter pick the mid lane, and he's been having a lot of success with that.
And I think it's really smart too, even to bring Jankos into the discussion. Jankos is a guy who, when he has success, the team has success. They've won every single game where Jankos has actually gotten first blood. 100% win rate at Worlds, 8 games that he's done it. So, you know, it speaks to the style of the team. They shove in their lanes. They're able to kind of take control because of that. If your lane is pushed up, you can roam first with the jungler. You can make those plays with Jankos, and that's something that they're definitely going to be looking to try to do today.
Yeah, I think for this pick and ban, we've seen H2K, they like to remove Poppy from the game, and it kind of allows Odoamne to play really aggressive with Jankos from the jungle. And I think that's really smart of them to do, because Ambition is more like a passive jungler. He likes to go for like kind of unorthodox picks like Skarner, and I think by just having top lane duel a lot, it would enable H2K to kind of snowball up there, and then as long as the H2K bot lane can just push all the time, then we could see a lot of action and a lot of snowballing from the top side of the map.
And you can kind of see that stylistically with the Caitlyn and the Jace ban specifically, and even Syndra as well, actually. They're, for their lane, probably the 3 best aggressive pushing champions you could ask in their role.
And it's also just comfort picks, right? This is what these guys have been playing, and I think that's a smart pick ban strategy for Samsung, because they're essentially just trying to take away the champions that excel at the styles that these guys like to play, right? Yes, Froggen can play, you know, Sivir and Lucian and lots of other ADs and stuff like that, but he really has excelled on Caitlyn, and I think it's a champion that fits him best.
Yeah, I also think for mid lane specific, I think Samsung actually has shown a lot of weaknesses in the pick and ban, because Crown does not play Aurelion Sol. They always ban Syndra on blue side, and Ryze has actually been banned a lot for them too. So it's like, obviously Ryze is probably the most broken champion right now. It's always gonna be banned, so it's like, it just, the 3 best mid lane champions, he basically can get to play. He only play 1 out of those 3 champions, so it's really easy to just ban it out and be like, okay, now you have a pretty small champion pool. Obviously, his Viktor is open, and he's very likely gonna go with that later on, but
what do you think about that, though? Leaving the Viktor open, you know, speaking about comfort picks and stuff like that, it doesn't really get any more comfortable than Crown playing Viktor. The guy has played it so many times. Throughout the LCK, it was like by far his most played. He's had a lot of success on it. Do you think that it is intelligent for H2K to be leaving it up?
I think it's okay to leave it up. I don't think Viktor is absolutely broken, and even if there's a player that's extremely good on Viktor, you can let him have it as long as you have a strategy prepared, because Viktor is a champion that needs a certain amount of gold to really excel and to really like power up the game. And he needs like 1.2k gold, get the first Hexcore upgrade, and then he can really just power farm. But even then, he's gonna go out of mana a lot, and basically all of his abilities cost a bunch of mana. Oh boy, another scorpion against Zyra.
I just can't believe we're doing it again.
But yeah, the Viktor pick is something you can punish, especially in the early game, and that's kind of where H2K's strengths are. So if they really want to just snowball the game and just smash it, then leaving Viktor up is okay.
Well, at some point I was like, oh, I like this pick and ban from H2K. I mean, Nidalee first makes sense from Samsung. It's the one jungler that pretty much no one wants to leave open, but H2K at least deciding here. Jankos goes with Olaf, Zyra. You know, these are pretty strong generic picks. We're going to save some of the solo laners for later, because we did have quite a few bans. Not nearly as many mid lane bans as we had yesterday when Faker was playing against Kuro, but still kind of the obvious target bans here. I think your point, Froggen, about Aurelion Sol being a pick that Crown doesn't really play, and we haven't seen from RYU this tournament, I believe.
I actually don't think RYU plays it either. The only one that played it in the semifinals would have been Kuro.
Yeah.
The rest of the mid laners actually didn't play Aurelion Sol, which is really weird.
Yeah,
because he's such a simple champion to play.
I find it so weird, actually, and it's kind of a bit of an enigma, because almost always people are picking up whatever is considered like the most OP, and Aurelion Sol has been kind of considered that for a lot of people for a while now, but yet there's tons of mid laners. I mean, just to name some of the top ones at the tournament that don't play it, it's like Bjergsen doesn't play it, Faker doesn't play it, you know, neither of these guys play it, Crown and RYU don't play it. Like, there's a ton of mid laners who are at the Worlds level, and it does really kind of hurt your pick ban a fair bit when you can't play one of those top champions.
Yeah, definitely, because it's also that it doesn't really require a lot of time onto the champion to really master it. You can still do what he's really good at doing, just basically just pushing up and roaming around. Everyone at the world stage can pretty much do that, and it just puts so much pressure onto the enemy team that there wouldn't be a reason not to pick it up, because pretty much any team you would play against would just ban it because it's such a frustrating champion to deal with.
So if you're RYU here now, they have gone for the counter pick like you talked about for mid lane. Viktor is the lock. That's pretty obvious. You know, what kind of a mid laner do you think you would want to play in this? Like, what is the best possible matchup you feel like you could get?
Something that can enable Olaf and Kennen. Obviously, you have Sivir, so the ultimate, you don't need as much speed up. So RYU kind of has, like, basically he can pick whatever he wants. Vladimir could be a pretty decent champion because Samsung doesn't have a lot of CC to actually stop a Vladimir diving into the backline, and he has a decent matchup versus the Viktor too. It's basically just like no one really dies, and then once Vlad gets 2 or 3 items, he actually scales extremely well just because of how much he can dive into the Samsung team. They do decide to go with the Cassiopeia. I'm not sure if I like that because one of the reasons Cassio has problems in some of this meta is like there's so many slows and zoning CC from the other champions. So like Misfortune, E, and Ultimate is gonna be zoning out the Cassiopeia. Ashe, Volley, the arrow, just the constant slow from 600 range is gonna zone out the Cassiopeia. The Viktor, Ultimate, and E is gonna zone out the Cassiopeia. So I don't actually like the Cassiopeia pick too much, even though it's okay in lane. Like the 2v2 is like whoever really managed to play it best, hit their abilities, is pretty even. But I would have liked them for them to actually go with the Vladimir because Samsung has absolutely nothing that can stop the Vlad from diving in. And you have the Sivir that enables the Vlad even harder to just dive into the backline.
And we've seen kind of a lot of this between these two. I feel like, you know, they don't play the big 3 mid laners. 2 of them are banned already because it's kind of expected to see Syndra and Ryze both not be allowed to be in the game. And I think, you know, Crown's going to go Viktor. That's where he's comfortable. We've seen a lot of Cassio from RYU, and he did well on it. Like, they're both good Cassio players, actually. But I don't know. It could be the weirdest mid lane matchup of the tournament because, like, they just refuse to play some of the good champions. They're not going to get some others, and they might have to dig deep in their pockets to play some of their more comfort picks, even if they're not as good.
Yeah, and I mean, Viktor obviously, well, it may not be the tip-top tier, it still is strong, and it's something we've seen a lot of. Cassiopeia, these are both champions that we've seen a lot of, but maybe we just didn't expect to see this specific matchup, like as you said, especially leaving it with a counter pick. It does feel a little bit underwhelming.
Both champions are very strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's by no means weak champions. It's champions that can do very well. Whenever you have Sivir, they very likely pick Cassio for more zoning, so the Sivir can just deal as much damage as possible. Like, if no one can dive on top of Sivir and actually kill her, she can basically destroy team fights in the mid-late game, right? She is that hyper carry that's really strong. The problem that I have with it is that Viktor is probably the best champion of all mid-lane champions to get to the backline without any effort. You put down your E, you put down your ultimate, and you have your Rylai slow, and they're zoned out the entire team fight, or at least until Viktor's ultimate passes out, and that's a long time for your carries to be gone.
Yeah.
So he's probably the best champion. Oh boy.
That's
dead.
Awkward.
Oh my god.
Oh, that was adorable.
Hopefully we can actually get a replay of that. I'd like to see what happens.
We saw SKT kind of try this yesterday, where they have Olaf run straight into the bottom lane bush, and then you have these 2v2 fights, and Olaf just kind of runs someone down, and that's very likely what happened here. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. You just have Olaf run down to the bot lane push, and you just run them down. And then you have priority for the bot lane to shove first, to really push them away from the first minion wave. And
that is so good for SK, or oh god, it says SK. There it goes. I was like, wait, wait a second. But yeah, that is honestly an excellent start, especially because for giving Goth the first blood, I think it's not really anyone better to have that on, and it does make it riskier for those return ganks and potentially roams. But Cassiopeia versus the Viktor, this is going to be the matchup now. You know, do you see this as pretty much just kind of like a farm lane?
It's kind of like a lane where Viktor will try to poke out the Cassiopeia with his E and with his Q, and then Cassio kind of have options to all in the Viktor at some point. Like, if Viktor isn't careful whenever Cassiopeia hits the poison, then she does have the ability to all in him, and he doesn't have many ways of really stopping her. You can put down the gravity field, but you don't want to use that in the early game because it costs too much mana, so you can't consistently do your QE harassment. For Viktor, it's very good to trade in short bursts of damage. It's like Q, auto attack E, you proc the Thunder Lord, and you back off right away.
Ooh, good dodge from Crown.
Very nice.
Little trade back and forth. Just a quick reminder as well, as we have slowed things down after the first blood hanging out. We are, of course, taking questions throughout the day and, of course, in this game as well. So if you guys have anything you do want to ask us on the stream, make sure you get the hashtag AskTheCasters tweeting at LOL Esports, so we'll address your questions about anything really, but usually about the game. If you guys want to ask Froggen in particular something about mid lane, we can bring that for you as well. But it'd be really cool to see this matchup. Both these champions, you know, not a whole lot of blinks, not a whole lot of dashes going on, so a lot of these little positioning things are going to be important in the lane. And RYU, I think the other reason he maybe likes the champion is just stylistically, he's able to at least push up and be aggressive, particularly in the early game before Viktor does get that first tech score upgrade.
Yeah.
The problem with Cassiopeia pushing up Viktor is that when Viktor's close to his tower, it denies Cassiopeia of the ability to put on a lot of pressure. Oh, and we see a bot lane gank.
CoreJJ is dead again by the looks of things. Yeah, Jankos with a kill.
Yeah.
It's an easy return gank because they forced the flash on MF early, so things starting out very well for each.
Forgive him did get the first kill, by the way. So if anyone's going to get their first blood, that was probably the best possible person to get it.
Okay,
he's going to have to bail. Oh no, that's awkward. Good flash.
Back to the point I was talking about, but it's like Cassiopeia is kind of forced to push Viktor up when you trade in these short bursts of damage. And I think that RYU should trying to not push up that much. He either needs to shove it like really hard so it bounces back to him, or he needs to have Jankos around to actually defend him, because what happens is that Cassiopeia will lose every single trade unless it's like a longer trade where she can hit the person, because Viktor's burst damage with the early game shield from the Q is too strong. He is going to win the trades, and that's what you saw. RYU got low, and then he was like, I'm going to go out to ward, and then he basically just got ganked by the Nidalee. So that's one weakness of this Viktor versus Cassiopeia matchup. And on top of that, RYU took a bunch of damage early on in the game, so he did.
Nidalee's behind him as well.
Yep.
Again, he's dead.
Bad
He's
news
just going
bears.
to keep getting ganked.
Yep, great stun, ambition, doing work.
RYU doesn't respect Crown basically, or just doesn't respect the lane of you can't just walk up without having any summoners. The lane is bouncing back to you. Just go put your pink ward down first, and then you go back to lane. Then you can then you can at least hover towards one side and be like, okay, I'm safe from here, and then I can run away and maybe only get chunked instead of dying. Instead, he just gives up 2 early game
And now
kills.
he's like super boned because this wave is huge.
I'd also say the fact that he went to ward there, it's like he went to ward when he was already low, and yes, he had pushed in his opponent, but he was never going to be able to survive in a 1v1 against the Nidalee if the Nidalee was there. So not having the support from his own jungler or from his support or from someone else to kind of actually make that a safe move was a pretty big problem, because the first kill that he had on himself, he gave away for free, gives up both his summoners, then he pushes in again. Like you said, he could have waited for the wave to crash and try to pick up that farm more conservatively. Instead, he's down 2 kills already and going to be quite behind. Thankfully for him, at least, his lane opponent didn't pick up those kills, so Crown just has 1 assist, and farm is relatively even, so it's not as bad as it looks for this lane. But for the state of the game, it's obviously pretty bad, because he fed 2 kills to a Nidalee.
One important thing is that Nidalee is going to be snowballing now, but Viktor did not pick up his 1.2k gold so he can upgrade his tech score, so he came back to lane with boots, another Dawn string, and then a pink ward. And that actually doesn't snowball him very hard against the Cassiopeia. Like, he's not going to take off and just completely crush the lane. He is going to get a lead.
Oh, what is going on in bottom
bot lane fighting here?
This kill's being traded again. Jankos is still there, but I'm not sure he's going to get that last kill. I mean, you can kind of see the game plan. H2K, they had that, funky little strat prepared in the bottom lane, and now but Ambition did kind of prudently go mid to pressure RYU there as well. So right now it does feel like Ambition's doing well, pressuring that mid lane, but H2K are putting all their resources into that bottom side of the map, trying to snowball Forgiven, who currently, to be fair, is 2-0-1.
And look at Crown actually kind of freezing this lane now against him. Even using a gravity field there to hold all those range minions was pretty intelligent, just to reduce the amount of damage he's taking from that. Because there was like 6 or 7 minions there, and if you do just sit and kind of face tank that, you'll actually lose a lot of health. So he's keeping the lane in a position where RYU has to be very, very scared. RYU still doesn't have his flash. He can't fully bounce the wave. And as a result, he's going to have to just bleed farm, because if you push up too far, you're always risking getting ganked or getting, all in, etc.
Yeah, it's also just how the matchup goes, that Viktor wants to sit in front of his tower, so Cassiopeia cannot run him down. Because even though RYU is behind, Viktor doesn't have any resistance, he doesn't have any extra protection, even though he has a lead. Because he doesn't need that certain amount of gold, right? So he's not going to get magic resistant, he doesn't necessarily get faster before his second upgrade. So Cassiopeia can actually still run down Viktor if she hits a lot of poison, so you usually want to just have the minion wave in front of the tower rather than at Cassiopeia.
And you can see Crown has been expertly holding waves there, although it has kind of reset back into the midsection. He's up in farm as a result, though, so this is kind of going, I think, how he wants it. RYU could potentially have had a lot of threat in this lane and done some of those all-ins that you mentioned, but, you know, Crown knows that, especially with Ambition behind him, he can play ultra safe. He's going to rebounce the wave now and put pressure back on RYU and make a little more space. And Cassio, I just feel like at this point, RYU is never going to get a chance to do what he really wants to do and get up and play aggressive, and that's a sore spot for H2K because they've been pushing every single lane mostly.
Yeah, I think when there already is this deficit and RYU isn't getting any help from Jankos to really shut down the Viktor, he's actually gonna take off. Like, you think it's bad right now, but once Viktor hits level 7 and 9 and gets that second upgrade, it's gonna get much worse than it already is.
And just look at this, I mean,
RYU getting poked out all the time. And this is gonna be much worse as the lane goes on, because RYU can't do anything against it. Viktor outranges Cassio. We're just spamming E all the time. If Cassio tries to all in, Viktor's ultimate alone will pretty much just out-damage whatever Cassiopeia can do, because all Viktor has to do is run away, and then Cassiopeia will still get damaged by that ultimate. So it's kind of a very tough position for RYU. And you're probably going to see Crown go ahead and base, get his upgrade, and then he can also do the power farming of just taking the waves all the time, where he doesn't even have to take his own, he just take them over the wall, so RYU actually can pick up that extra like 27 gold every like time the wave camp is up, and that's actually pretty big too.
And I'd say just like to explain for viewers who maybe didn't understand the ultimate there, the ultimate was not necessarily trying to all in or trying to kill him. He's basically just forcing his opponent out of lane. And this is something that Viktor players do a fair bit, is these early ultimates can just be used as poke, right? You push your opponent out of lane, he forces RYU to base, once again, setting him further behind in experience, setting him further behind in gold because the minion wave is about to crash. So it's a small thing, but these little edges that you gain from pushing your opponent out, especially once he's already behind and had no potions in that spot, is pretty intelligent, and it was not him going for a kill, it's just him going for more lane dominance.
Yep. I think it is very good to use that ultimate to just zone away from a minion wave, but we're probably not going to see him try to do that again unless it's an all-in for the kill.
Yeah.
Because Viktor's ultimate is on a long cooldown and he doesn't have a lot of pressure, a lot of kill pressure without it. So instead, we're more likely to see him just push up that mid lane and then either put pressure onto the first mid tower, or he would try to roam towards bot lane, because his 2 kills is very easy to get with that bullet time and with that Ashe arrow just coming in. And Nidalee will be setting up some vision, and then they will be roaming together towards, like, most likely the bot lane, and they can expand their lead to the first tower from there.
Well, it's kind of cool to see that after that little gank in the top lane by Jankos, nice work by Odo and him taking down CuVee. You can kind of see what's happening on the H2K side for the mid lane matchup. Things went wrong pretty early on for RYU there, with Ambition coming twice and RYU suffering those deaths. Crown, it feels like he's got a good CS lead and complete control of the lane, especially now that he has that second Hex Core upgrade. And it's going to open up space for this. Ambition able to take this Drake very freely, because Crown is going to get there instantly if he needs to be there, and Nidalee's very good at solving these objectives. Like, it's an interesting matchup because there is kind of a lot of farming, but I think the control that Crown's exerted on this lane has been really great to watch.
That certainly has, and I mean, thankfully for RYU, although obviously everything kind of went tragic pretty early, the rest of the map is doing well for his team, right? You know, top lane is winning, bot lane has those kills, they're down in CS because it is this really tough matchup, but they have avoided dying and they are ahead in gold because of the kills that they've picked up. So things are looking pretty good for them, but it does kind of make you a little bit worried as far as what you talked about, Froggen, where it's like, it's already tough for Cassiopeia to get involved in these fights and to get in, and you really have to kind of pick your moments in those cases, and it's like, if you're behind even more, then it becomes even tougher, because those small windows that you have to do damage and to get in there are just not as effective.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's pretty much impossible for RYU to trade, because he has a disadvantage in levels and items, and he is basically never going to out-damage Viktor right now. Even in an all-in, Cassiopeia will not win. So what's gonna happen is he's gonna constantly be pushed up, there's gonna be pressure onto the mid tower, and then it's kind of up to H2K to try to kind of negate that pressure as best as he can. Like, if he decides to go around the map, we saw Vander use his flash on bot lane earlier onto the Zyra, so it's basically a free kill. If Crown decides to go down there, then ADC has to be really fast at either leaving the tower or at least killing the minion wave so they can't get that first tower gold. So they need to do something to kind of help RYU back into the game, because right now he doesn't push as fast, he doesn't trade as effectively, and the 2v2 around mid and jungle is just much worse because of how fed the Nidalee is and how much he can farm, and then obviously for Viktor too. They both just clear the jungle and the lane instantly, so they can move anywhere on the map. So I would really like for them to just start moving around and just use some of that pressure they're gaining instead of just keep sitting in their lane. But usually they take off, like Samsung takes off around minute 15 to 20, and they get a huge lead there. So we'll probably see that happen soon.
And you can kind of see their lead reflected a little bit even in the vision that they have, like especially around the bot side of the map. There's deep wards going in. For Samsung, they have 3 pink wards on bot side, so it is a lot harder for Jankos to kind of continue what he was doing in the early game, or for RYU to even make any roams or anything. Not that he's looking to do that right now, but you know, if you are RYU, it's obviously damage control. But for Crown, do you think it makes sense for him to just stay in this lane and continue to bully, or should he be looking for dives, and should he be looking for those roams?
I think that right now they have a TP disadvantage, so he doesn't necessarily, like, it might just be a team decision of, okay, we want to wait till our TP is up too, and then to kind of make stuff happen after that. But yeah, I think it's more just a team decision. I think definitely you would want to expand that lead to somewhere else in the map, because getting the tower alone in mid is pretty difficult. But you also saw it here. Crown used his ultimate in mid to kind of push RYU out of lane, and then they just rotate bot, and it's a very free tower for them.
Yeah, it was nice. So a bit of mispositioning there from RYU. Almost clipped him with the gravity field, but was allowed to just use the ultimate and zone him away. Ambitions here, hello! It's on a RYU again. That arrow almost gonna hit, but nice little side step from RYU.
That's good side step from RYU. I also actually don't like the ultimate that Crown did, where he just tries to zone RYU away, because basically, Crown, all he has to do is use his E on the minions, and then he can move towards bot anyway. Cassio is gonna be stuck in mid lane. You don't have to try to actually kill her. It's much better if you have your ultimate for when the fight actually breaks out. If you don't have that ultimate, it's just so much weaker. But obviously, it worked out. They got the free bot lane tower. H2K was forced to like give it up basically. And even now, Sivir is known as a champion that can wave clear a lot, especially when she gets a BF sword. And normally people like to put Sivir mid. The problem with putting Sivir mid against Viktor is that he has so much damage that she can spell shield everything that Viktor does. So he can basically one-shot the Sivir at this point in the game, where all he has to do to one-shot is just auto-attack QE ulti, and she basically has to pop her ultimate and run away. And it's not very fun for H2K to play against this kind of champion right now. So they just have to try to kind of get back into the game as much as they can. Find some way to get pressure back. They've tried it to get it through top lane, so maybe Odoamne can like stop that if Samsung decides to group up mid with like arrow and all these abilities to like kind of zone H2K away.
They actually are going to make the switch, maybe by the looks of things, Forgiven currently hanging around that midsection, RYU going bot, so they actually will swap it up. We do have a question out there from Twitter though. The Garden Girl asked, why not pick Zilean? There's something else they can't. Well, they have got Crown. Not going to die though. Stranglethorn's not quite enough.
I think Zilean would be another very great pick. Like anything that kind of enables the Kennen, enables the Olaf, even enables the Sivir to some extent, would just be great to have right now. So it's like, just champions that could do that would be Zilean. It could be Karma, even Orianna. We saw that work out really well for Faker yesterday against Viktor. It's just champions that kind of has this kind of protection, but also has a bunch of damage to kind of kill squishy lineups, which Samsung's Galaxy lineup is. It is squishy. So I would have liked to see something like that too. I don't think the Cassiopeia pick is working out the way that H2K wanted to.
Yeah, certainly not. I definitely think there's no... It's just personal preference, right? Yeah. They obviously decided they were more comfortable with the Cassiopeia. They wanted maybe the additional teamfight damage or whatever, but I think that Zilean would have certainly worked very well here. And that's like, when we were talking champ select, they're like, oh, these are the things they need. And I was like, oh, so they're going to pick Zilean. So, yeah, guess I was wrong.
I mean, yeah, I think, again, preference is certainly important. Both RYU and Crown on champions, they like
RYU is someone that likes to play the more damage.
Yeah, he likes to be aggressive. He wants to be a carry.
The thing is, Vladimir was open.
Yeah.
You can do that on Vlad. Even if you, I mean, it's so hard for Vlad to die to a Nidalee ganking and even to a Viktor early game. Viktor is going to go out of mana, and you kind of just sit there and sustain as Vlad. So that's something that would be able to negate the pressure and kind of still do his job later on in the game. But, I mean, maybe he can still do that, but normally when I see this happen to Cassiopeia when playing against Viktor, it's just going to be an absolute stomp.
CuVee looks like he's in trouble in the pit there. Yep, he is dead. Odoamne getting another kill. So top side is going well, at least for H2K. Bottom lane had some struggles after their early wins. That did lose their tower, and mid has certainly been going wrong early here. for RYU. We can check in with the builds now, though, as Crown is busy clearing wards and counter-jungling. Got complete control here on the bottom side. We saw Faker yesterday go for Litbane second here. I imagine that's a Rylai second for Crown, though. We'll see where he finishes the Hex Core.
It's always going to be Rylai second item on Viktor. We did see Litbane Shaker, but
Faker.
not a lot of people do that. I believe Faker is the only one that has actually done that so far, and then some people do get the Litbane later on at like third or fourth item. But Rylai is the most common thing to do. If anyone gets hit with an ability, you just run them down because Q is such a low cooldown, and once you hit level 13, you have your Rylai, you have your second Hex Core upgrade with the CDR boots. You can run anyone down even without pressing go. So all you do is Q them, they're slowed, you follow up with your ultimate and your E, and they basically have to spend their summoner abilities. And if no one of the team comes to back you up at that point, then Viktor's just gonna ghost after you and you're basically dead because he deals so much damage with his abilities. So it's a very common build. The only weakness with that build is the mana cost. Viktor's abilities cost a bunch of mana, and Viktor has to manage that very carefully of not just spamming his abilities whenever he can.
Unless he's got the blue buff, which is getting contested right now. They want to give it over. Ambition already stole one away. RYU's been missing it. I believe the Smite took it over to Ambition. He does get it, but once again, RYU will be denied that buff for the second time in a row.
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, it's also good for H2K to contest that, just because it makes Viktor like much weaker than if he were to have that blue buff. So even though RYU doesn't get it, well, Crown doesn't get it too. So it's just like some golden experience on.
Oh, that's bad, Vander. Good fight.
They're trying to fight though. They want it all in.
They do. Jankos actually ran in the back. Does take
here's Odoamne. He has ult.
Is dead. Odo, big proto about H2K.
Oh, wow.
Turn that around completely.
And that's exactly how they have to play it. You can't let Samsung slow roll it because they'll zone you off the turret. They'll poke you out.
Again, holy Ambition. He's a beast. But you think he's going to go down? Yep, they'll get chased in. Oh, heal. Enough. Need a bit more. Ambition. Oh, too much.
That was really well done because CuVee did not TP in that fight, and I don't believe they saw Odoamne TP in. So when they landed that arrow onto Vander, it's like, oh, let's collapse onto this Zyra. But what happens is just ADC can just return so much damage because everyone is focused on the Zyra instead of the damage dealer. So what you see is just everyone collapsing onto only Zyra. Like they use 3 ultimates to only kill Zyra, and that's awful. Like you should never do that. Zyra would be dead if you just Viktor E and ultimate. She's dead. You don't have to do anything else, and Viktor can just start running back at that point.
Definitely was a big overcommitment, but I have to say it was very well done from H2K to immediately recognize that. And you know, there was no hesitation. Froggen popped his ultimate not to run away. He was immediately attacking, and they returned damage very, very quickly. So definitely credit where it's due for that. But I do agree, it was they basically thought that they were just going to kill Vander and then siege the turret, and they ended up getting into a fight.
I think it's also kind of in Samsung's head, it's like, oh, we are so far ahead, like, oh, we just take any fight and we will easily win this fight. And then H2K really shows that, oh, they can just turn it around. They're actually not a bad team. And yeah, that is very good from H2K. Like, RYU got his W down on the ground onto Crown when Jankos was running at him at the same time, and it's just really hard for him to survive. So that's what they have to be careful of. They can't commit too hard onto the backline. Just let the long-range champion kind of like do all the work. And then they just have to be a bit more patient. If anyone should dive the backline, it should be CuVee, but he was not even in the fight. He chose not to TP at all. So that's probably it also, the engage from Samsung also shows what they really want to do in the game. They want to just siege up towers, arrow on whoever really is there, obviously except for Olaf because he got Ragnarok. But anyone else, they can one-shot, and that's just something that Samsung is gonna do. Push up lanes, go siege, arrow, get a pick, and then maybe back off, wait for the cooldowns again.
They have so many good tools to threaten the arrow as well, like the gravity field, the misfortune knee, all these things that slow you or stun you that can set it up, so that does make it harder to defend.
Yeah, certainly will, but nice to see H2K pulling the trigger instantly and going for it. I think CuVee more than anything was surprised. It's actually Jankos going to dive back in, Crown snared up there, CoreJJ going to go down, Lover's Forgiven picks up that kill, and Jankos is being a huge pain in the ass for poor Crown. That's twice now he's been run down.
And this is the respect that has to be given over to H2K, because although Samsung, you know, has been ahead and they have more gold, they're not stronger in all positions, right? This is Odoamne is ahead, Forgiven is ahead, Jankos is very strong, he's 405, so you still have to pay your opponent their dues and respect the fact that yes, you can poke them out and yes, you can pick people off, but in a straight up 5v5 all-in fight, you will lose.
Yeah, I also think this is something to do with like, H2K knows that, okay, they don't have summoners on Samsung because a fight was just taken. Vander still has his flash up because he died instantly last fight. So he kind of just like flashes in, does as much damage as possible, and Jankos runs at them at the exact same time.
That's aggressive, RYU. Ambition caught, yeah, it will go down. Nice slow actually from the ultimate. Yeah,
it was really good. I mean, it would have been, I think, over-aggressive had his teammate not been there, but wow, they're actually doing so well.
Okay. So CuVee did escape, managed to join the fight, instantly TP's in and ulti's out back to bottom lane. So we'll pressure that turret, but sounds like Galaxy really not prepared, it feels like, for these aggressive moves from H2K, and they've been doing well. And I think this is something where RYU, we can highlight him again. He was falling behind. He's actually still very far behind versus his lane opponent, almost 1,000 gold down, but you can see the work that Cassio can do when she's unable to do damage. Vlad, I agree with you. Froggen would have done something similar, but RYU probably is a little more effective right now, and if H2K are going to play these fights aggressively, Cassio is a good champion when she gets going, and RYU has had good openings in these last few fights.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Samsung doesn't have pressure from the Ashe and the Viktor onto the Cassiopeia and the Sivir right now, so they're kind of free to do whatever they want, and that's also part of what happened in the early game from H2K. They chose not to help out RYU, just leave him alone, like he can do whatever he wants to do, and Jankos just farms up, he ganks side lanes, he ganked for bot, he ganked for top, he like put on a lot of pressure to those lanes, and then he kind of just became a monster from that because he didn't forget to farm, and that just allows him to kind of run people down with the Sivir ultimate, and with Odoamne just kind of getting into the backline, and they're just crushing the fights, and that's opening up for RYU and for Given to deal as much damage as possible. And now Crown has to be so careful because he cannot deal with an Olaf. Like, he doesn't have enough cooldown reduction to really just smash down that Olaf. It's gonna take a while, and it's gonna keep taking a while until he hits his next item, which is either Void Staff, Blitzbane. Like, both those items are items that kind of crush his tanks.
Yeah, and I think it is really key that you pointed out the importance of Jankos getting ahead, because the fact that he is tanky enough and has gotten enough ahead and is strong enough means that he can't just be instantly bursted down while he's running in. So it forces them to kind of scatter, and it's allowing their carries the freedom to do their job. So I definitely think that is a very good point. And now RYU has completed his rally, so he is at least on 2 items and is becoming more and more relevant in these fights.
I think even though RYU has a CS lead and we saw how the lane went and he didn't have the best time, right now he's probably in a better spot than Crown, just because of how the team fight has been working for H2K right now. Because I think that Cassiopeia will win against the Ekko in a 1-on-1, because Ekko can keep up with Cassiopeia. She gets too much movement speed from her Q, and then she can kite with Rylai's now, and even Abyssal Scepter helps against Ekko because he deals a lot of magic damage. Ekko is known as kind of like a fast champion. He's hard to like chase down and stuff, but if there is a champion that can do it, it's most definitely Cassiopeia. So he's actually in a good spot to just go onto a side lane and kind of just crush it there.
Oh, actually this is the other two. CuVee and Odo are going to fight. Trinity Force there. Odo needs a stun, does get it, but dash over the wall from CuVee is going to keep him safe. Arrow doesn't hit. Odoamne gets out safely.
Yeah, this just shows that I guess they want to fight in the side lanes and just kind of put pressure on from there, because Forgiven is just going to be in mid lane. He's gonna push the wave up. He has enough items where Crown doesn't really pressure him unless he knows where Jankos is. So if Forgiven is alone in mid lane, Crown could just press his ghost and kind of just run Forgiven down, and he would most likely win. But he cannot contest the minion wave if he doesn't know where the H2K team is. So it kind of allows the side lanes just to fight a lot, and it also shows that, okay, Odoamne is willing to spend his Kennen ultimate to make sure he's gonna win that 1-on-1, to keep up the pressure and to keep on farming, and just like really just pressure out the map. So they're probably not gonna be looking for TP flanks in and just have a massive team fight if this is the way they want to play the game. At least not for now. Maybe when Kennen ultimate is up again. And
you can see that Forgiven is paying that respect to Crown, picking up a Hex Drinker, right? It is acknowledging the fact that he can obviously be all in and taken out very quickly. And now, looking at the game from Crown's point of view, we've talked about his ability to chase people down and stuff. How much are you worried about a Kennen flank if you are Crown, if you are pushing up in these scenarios?
I think Viktor is one of the champions that deals with the Kennen flank the best, just because of how long range his abilities are. So, okay, you see Kennen TP somewhere, okay, you just put your E down. Now he doesn't have home guard anymore. On top of that, he's gonna get slowed because of the Rylai's. If Kennen gets really close, okay, he can flash onto you and you die. There's not a whole lot of things you can do about it, regardless of what champion you are. But if he doesn't have flash, then you can always just Q the Kennen and you can run away because you get a big boost of movement speed. And it also slows Kennen again. The Rylai's is really a big deal of slowing the Kennen down. So something Odoamne should be aware of is just he needs to TP somewhere that Samsung cannot see.
Yep, got to find that juicy angle that he did get, to be fair, in that mid lane fight earlier. Looks like H2K, they're looking pretty aggressive around the Baron area.
Going.
Jankos in again. He wants Ruler. Ruler's getting chased. Oh my Jesus. That is disgusting. RYU's in all the way in. Way too in, but Odoamne cleans up the back end of the fight. Zones him out with the ultimate, but taking damage.
Crown's really low.
And Crown playing it well. Strangle Thorns. Ooh, that gravity field was delicious. Crown gets the shutdown onto Odo, and that's part of the issue I think you were talking about with Kennen playing.
I mean, the start of that fight was honestly great for H2K,
Odo did really well.
But they had to give up that chase. They tried to chase through Gravity Field without Ragnarok up anymore, and with Odoamne not having his flash anymore, they both get stunned up and they trade over that easy kill, because had he still been alive, there is like a lot more threat on Baron and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Go anyway, wow.
Do decide to go for the Baron.
CuVee TPing.
Ambition's in, CuVee, yep, can join it. Did take a tower bottom lane. Baron getting low, they're going to zone in Ambition, that's a good catch, they need to kill him though. Crown actually killed Vander. Ambition's there, but the Baron can't get chased. CuVee going to keep locking them down. Forgiven's going to have to play for his life here, and I think it's a little too much. Forgiven is down, and Samsung
I don't
get
like
the
that
triple.
Baron attempt at all, because what happens is like, okay, you kind of like, you get 1 or 2 kills, and you spend all your flashes and summoners to kind of just get those 2 kills instead of just let Ambition and let Ruler flash away and just back off. Your ultimates have 1 minute cooldown. You can just wait for them to be up, and then you run at them again, and this time they can't run away, and you might get an ace or something. You got a really good flank from Odoamne. They no longer has exhaust, even though you did spend your Kennen, CP, and flash. Then you have to kind of cut your losses. Just do not chase too far. You can't chase into an area where Viktor will just put down his ultimate, he'll put down his gravity field, and then you're gonna die once you get out of Hourglass. The Hourglass is not very effective against Viktor because of that. Put down Viktor's W on top of you, you can't move out. You're basically gonna die.
Goodbye, Vander. This seems to be the story of this button.
Yeah, I mean, you could see, and the thing is, it's like, had they killed 2 people or something, then maybe it would have made more sense, but they actually traded kills, and then went for a Baron after that, and not having the summoners. So, I mean, had Odoamne been alive and stuff, then maybe that makes more sense, but it was very risky, and to me, that kind of is speaking a little bit about the mindset of the team, where they felt like they had to take a big risk to be able to do something, to be able to either close it out or get ahead or whatever. But they're now quite down. You know, almost 8,000 gold at this point after that. And with a triple kill on CuVee, one of the strengths for their team, which had been Odoamne in this 1v1, that's not going to be there anymore. Ekko will not be losing, I don't think, at all in this 1v1 anymore.
Yeah, he will not lose anymore.
He's going to smash.
Kennen will not deal enough damage to kind of kill CuVee. CuVee can just always run away, and Kennen, if he blows his ultimate, well, he's not really great in team fights. He's basically gonna be pretty useless compared to if he did have his ultimate, because he can't just one-shot 5 people on the enemy team, you know? So it's like, and also on top of that, when they went for the Baron, they also knew CuVee did still have his TP. They know he didn't just cancel it and then stay bot to just push in the towers. He never used it in the first place.
Yeah, it's a little awkward there, committing, I think overcommitting for the Baron. Still up though, so up for grabs potentially, but Samsung Galaxy, so much control kind of around everything here.
To go back more about Cassiopeia and the Viktor, we saw Cassiopeia finish his Rylai's and Abyssal pretty early on, but he still hasn't gotten his third item because they stopped kind of winning fights. He got 2 extra assists since then. Oh, and we see Jankos kind of running at CoreJJ.
They want the support. The support's going to go down.
That's good. That's
Look
good
at the
thing.
damage on RYU from about half an MF ultimate. He's actually doing a lot of damage now because he has the cleaver completed and actually has a decent amount of damage. That's kind of scary.
Uh-oh, Jankos.
But I do think this is a good idea from SSG to kind of just run at them whenever they have the Ragnarok and whenever they have on the hunt from Sivir. Just run at them if they're alone. That's a really good way of just getting pressure, trying to get back into the game. I do think ADC's main problem right now is the way that they're shot calling around the Baron, because that's something they've always had a weakness for. It's just, okay, they don't actually have a clue how to do Baron at all. And if they want to win this series, it's something they need to figure out, and they need to figure it out quickly. Yeah. Because it's gonna cost them a lot. They actually did have a lot of pressure in the game. They were in a really good position to kind of pressure out Samsung and just basically do a lot in the game and start to close it out, but then they just threw everything away by going for a random Baron without really controlling it.
Honestly, it's been a problem for a lot of teams at Worlds. Even yesterday in Rox versus SKT, which was a fantastic series, by the way, if you haven't watched it, we saw Rox lose multiple games. The last 2 games were basically both lost off of random Baron attempts, right? Where they just went, well, I guess it's time to do a Baron now. We cleared out their pink ward. I guess we'll try it. And this is something that, to me, I think sometimes is maybe like due to the pressure that is on them at this stage, right? They're in a stadium with all these fans, and there is added pressure being at Worlds and doing these things. And I think it does sometimes affect teams' decision making, and they either get too hyped up and try to go for too much, or they're getting really nervous and feel like they need to make a play or do something. And that's something that can really be a big factor kind of behind the scenes, so to say.
Well, part of the issue now, of course, in this game is that Samsung Galaxy are a very good mid to late game team, and I think they've shown a lot of discipline kind of around the Baron area in a lot of these fights, and they've really retaken control of the game after getting themselves a nice big lead from H2K's missed call, I suppose, on the Baron. Of course, circling back to mid lane, Crown, insanely strong at this point on Viktor. Void stuff done, need to see large rod up, so whatever big AP item he wants next, he's going to claim. He'll get the blue buff, he's level 17. Like, this is your time to shine as Viktor.
I would have liked to see him go for something else that gives him mana, because right now, I mean, obviously he got blue buff, so he doesn't necessarily need the mana right now, but in teamfights, it's okay, they can just wait for him. If Crown likes to spam his abilities with just E, whenever he sees someone, well, he's gonna poke them with an E, and that's like 100 and something mana every single time. So they can just wait for him to get low on mana, and he has no way of getting that mana back in a teamfight. And on top of that, going for something else than Death Cap, Loot and Sack, or whatever he's gonna finish up, then it's like, okay, if he goes for Death Cap, he has a bunch of damage, I can understand it, but in this tournament, he's been liking to go for the Loot and Sack I've seen. And if you want that extra movement speed and extra burst from that extra AP scaling that it gives, go for Lichbane instead. It gives you mana, it gives you an extra auto attack, and it's very easy for you to auto attack people in team fights because Olaf is basically running in. So you can destroy the Olaf if you go for Lichbane instead, and you still get the movement speed from that Lichbane. You don't need to get it from Loot and Sack. So I would have liked to see, okay, it is the Death Cap, so that's great. He also sits on 30% CDR, so the reason not to go Morelonomicon to kind of cancel out the amount that Sivir and Cassiopeia heals from their abilities would also be to just like reduce their healing. It's not worth it if you lose 10% CDR because you already have the 30%.
Don't worry, CoreJJ's got that covered as well as he is going that Mortar Reminder Black Cleaver build.
Yeah.
We saw it yesterday from Gorilla. Samsung are still in control. H2K, they're fishing for a team fight. Elder Dragon up in 50 seconds. Could be a window to make something happen. Odo ready to go with actually a decent amount of damage and the flank. And we kind of have seen the team fighting prowess that H2K's comp can bring, but Samsung, as always, going to play it nice and controlled. Just take over the map, get that good vision, steal a red buff.
Yeah, right now, H2K is kind of in a position where they need to do something. CuVee is constantly going to pressure the bot lane tower. He's just going to E into the tower all the time. Odoamne has no way of killing him. Basically, if he wants to kill CuVee, he needs to spend the Kennen ultimate, and that's not necessarily worth it, because if he does not get the kill, well, Samsung can just take any team fight and they're basically gonna win that.
Yeah, they can even force around Baron and stuff without that Kennen ultimate very easily.
Another thing is, since they have Zyra support on H2K's side, Jankos is forced to go for Aegis, get that locket in for obviously the AoE magic resistant and kind of the shield. But he doesn't have any other magic resistant items, which means Crown right now, even Ambition, is just gonna power through him. He is not very tanky, even though he's 5-1 and 10. Then he's gonna get melted in teamfights now.
Yeah, and that's one of the kind of trade-offs of going for these more kind of supportive type builds, where he goes, you know, for the locket. Now,
Too late. Way too late. Yeah, I mean, Samsung Galaxy again. We talk about how good their mid to late game control is.
They're losing the turret as well.
Yeah, there's stuff's going on here. Looks like CuVee is going to get away, but he took a turret and Samsung Galaxy took a Baron. That's about the maximum as far as the setup they had.
Also, CuVee plays this really smart, and you can show that Samsung just wants to execute their strategy, because he would very likely have won that one-on-one with Odoamne, but he did not want to risk trading his own life for that. So instead, he just bases, ultimates back, gets full HP, and now he can pressure the inhibitor tower.
Odoamne might actually just die here, to be honest. His team needs to come help him out. And even if his team does collapse, now CuVee just has to run, and they're going to be pushing in top turret. So this is looking pretty bad for H2K, and it just feels like they're getting pulled completely apart. They just can't deal with the rotations and with the shot calling that Samsung has had. They were just splitting them to death.
Well, yeah, I would have liked to see, obviously, Cassiopeia going on a side lane versus Ekko is not ideal, but I think Odoamne should realize at this point, okay, he's not gonna get anything done versus that Ekko. What he should be trying to do instead is probably get a few ping balls in his inventory and then try to get behind Samsung. Obviously, Samsung has arrow and hawk shots, so it's hard for him to do, but at least sit there, have that pressure, just keep your distance, and the second Samsung kind of walks up and goes for the tower, then you just tell RYU, come, move to the tower that they're sieging, and then he can collapse from behind. So he doesn't necessarily, like, it doesn't need to be Odoamne sitting in the side lane with the Ekko. I think it could be Cassiopeia that can zone the Ekko away and kind of just fight the Ekko, because Cassio would be strong enough to do that.
CuVee's doing work, by the way. He did take that bottom inhibitor. Broke another one, I think.
Yep.
In mid.
And they still kind of have Odoamne match him, and it's just like...
They're going to try and kill him, but I'm not sure that's who they want. CuVee, oh my god. Just unkillable at this point. And in terms of Galaxy, straight back to top lane. This is just going to break completely in half for HK at some point. In fact, Forgiven's going to have to flash, and Vander flashes as well, almost dead. CuVee going to TP back in as they break top inhibitor. Oh my god. Forgiven. Good CC chain. CuVee knocked up, but still not dead. Odoamne finally dares to crown, and that GA's still up, and I think it's going to be game. RYU's going to pop him, and that's a Galaxy just kind of take over the back end of this game. It's CuVee starting to style on people again. That's spell shield Forgiven, but going to have to bring that one to the next game by the looks of things.
Yeah, and it's honestly such a bad feeling for H2K and for any team where it's like you're winning the fights, but you can't get control over the game. You know, they were up pretty heavily in kills in the mid game, and they have been winning all those fights, but they still, it just felt like they were losing the whole time. Those games will start to feel a little bit inevitable where you can't make the right fight happen.
I think that they were in control of the game. I just think it is really because of their bad bearing call. So for the short amount of time that they were in control of the game, maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, they just threw everything away because they wanted to go for a risky bearing. Because like, maybe they have the mindset of, oh, if we send Kennen back to the Ekko, then Ekko has TP, and then we're just going to lose the next fight because they have TP advantage. We need to play passive for another 4 minutes, so we need to go for something risky. And they need to not be thinking like that. They need to be like, okay, we gained out in this fight. We got 2 flashes, we got the exhaust, we basically kind of just traded kills. It's like, okay, that's great. Now just have Ekko pressure out the Ekko again, or if Ekko keeps splitting that far up, just have Sivir kind of go and run her down, or have Olaf go run him down. It's just they need to keep making plays with the Olaf and Sivir that we saw them do kind of after the failed Baron attempt, and they could definitely have done that before.
I think a lot of it for me is just like how they set up or didn't set up a lot of those teamfight situations. You could tell they want to just get in with their teamfight comp, run at the enemy, and force a fight. And the most common place to force fights is at Baron, but the execution and the setup for that play was not there, and they lost control of the Dragon area. They didn't have quite enough space in their lanes to open up, and Samsung Galaxy, to their credit, played very disciplined.
I'd also say, just to bring it back to mid lane, you know, to summarize a little bit, it's honestly a pretty rough game for RYU because the rest of his team was doing very well. I mean, his jungler's 5-1-10. His bot lane had a lot of kills. His top lane was quite a bit ahead. But because of some actually pretty poor play from RYU early on, you know, trying to go for an aggressive war without the support, dying there, losing his summoners, then dying immediately again, pushing up when the wave is coming to him, those 2 deaths actually could have potentially just cost him the game, right? He was such a non-factor in this whole game. He never actually caught up, and he put himself behind through these kind of small, poor decisions.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a good point, because RYU, he knows what to do in the team fights and stuff, so his problem will just be he needs to get there, and then he just needs to do his job. And I think also that goes into SDK setting up stuff, because we saw whenever Samsung was setting up a play, then SDK actually responded extremely well. And the second that Samsung kind of sits back again, then SSG has basically no clue what to do. So every single time they need to respond to Samsung, or they want to make a fight happen around an objective and Samsung has it set up, then SSG can respond. But whenever they need to set it up themselves, they have problems. And one person that's really good at kind of leading the team is RYU. So he needs to not put himself behind. So he has this pressure in the game to kind of lead HTK to what they should be doing in the game. And I think HTK is going to look better and stronger once he can do that.
Well, we'll see if he can maybe get a better matchup for himself. But coming up next, Inori is going to join the desk for a jungle-focused look at game number 2. Until then, we'll send you back to New York City, where Dash and the analyst desk are breaking down Samsung's Game 1 victory.
Ashe